Hey, Kiran, it's been a while since we've had a conversation on a number of things. I don't know about you, but I keep getting calls from everybody daily. Obviously, the start of 2020, everybody's curious what's going on, what has happened, and I don't know about you. Are you getting the same kind of calls as well, or?
I am. It's a pleasure to reconnect with you, Oscar. We really have many things to talk about. I get all these calls from people saying, hey, what's going on in the digital securities? We hear about STOs and we hear all these chains coming up. So what the heck's going on with all this? So I think, we had many conversations, Oscar, about how this private market ecosystem needs to be inclusive, but I'm not seeing that happening, right? It all seems like people are sort of competing with each other. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's been, 2019 is now behind us, and obviously, KoreConX, we reflected back on our year and we kind of provided a report to everybody. I'm not sure if everybody got a chance to read it, but what we saw is you're right. Everybody thinks they're competing against each other, and really we shouldn't be. We should really be focused on working together, regardless of what tools we're using to build our businesses, regardless if we have the same licenses or similar services, because ultimately, the market is so large in size, and at the moment, the amount of business that this new sector is taking is really not making any, you know, dent in the overall market. That's not to say it doesn't have the ability to do so. It's just right now it hasn't.
Mm.
But
How
so
how
it,
big is the private capital market, Oscar? Give us a sense of how is it in relation with the public markets?
well, I mean, look, the problem with data in the private markets is that there hasn't been a lot of it out there, and we've been really relying on data on a very small segment of it, meaning the companies that are venture backed. So you got companies like Crunchbase, PitchBook, and all that, and all the comparables.
Mm.
But you know what? The more you look in, the information has always been there. It's fairly significant, actually, if you really. So, just if we start looking at it globally, I mean, the private capital markets, as far as number of companies, there's 450 million. That's not a small number.
Wow.
So then you start breaking it down in by countries. But let's take U.S. and Canada, just
Yep.
two regions that people often speak about. There's 32 million right there,
Yep.
and they go, okay, so that number just seems overarching, so huge. And then how many companies are raising capital? 152,000 a year. So that's your wake up call right there, 152,000. And then you look at your numbers and you go, okay, wait a minute. So the number of opportunities are there, and why? Because obviously democratization is working, the Jobs Act is exemption is working, more information is becoming available. I'm not saying everybody's a success, certainly
Yep.
not saying that, but it
Mm.
means that we're getting better information so we can start making better prediction. But because it is so massive in size, that when you look at the overall market, it's clear that from when people use words like "you're my competitor," so I bet you're not. We're playing in a very small sandbox. Yes,
Hmm.
this is the size of market, but let's be realistic. 99%
Yep.
of it has already been called on.
Yep.
The VCs are taking the 3,000 they do, and they're doing their
Yep.
thing, and then the remaining are going the traditional route on a daily route. So I would say that you know the expression, what is it? You got to play along to get along, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Right. Right.
We need to get. It's not so much you got to play. We need to work together if we are going to really use words like we want to disrupt the private capital markets. We're not using that term at all. We don't. We
That's
don't.
right.
We we're not using it because
I mean,
disruption.
we think that the private capital markets are disrupted enough as it
Well,
is.
they
So
really
why
are.
add to it?
Well, I was just going to say that. I mean, how much more new technologies or new tools do you need? I mean, all of it is there. The tool
Yeah.
sets are there. There's great innovative companies all around us. building it on whether on blockchain,
Yeah.
non-blockchain. I mean, oh my goodness. For me, I've been seeing it for the last 10 years when fintech really emerged. And so I don't, in my personal opinion, and I guess we're all going to have different views on this,
Hmm.
but I guess views is one thing, but then you just got to look at time frame. And for me, it's very personal because I'm going back 10 years. And for some, I mean, their journey only started 2, 3 years ago, but I'm going
That's right.
back 10. And in that 10-year time frame, we were early starters looking at democratization. We were looking at platforms like ASOB in Australia, Our Crowd in Israel,
Hmm.
and so on. And the goal, you know, was democratize.
Yep.
And to this day, the market didn't fear them, money didn't fear them, VCs didn't fear them. Why? Because they knew the pie was so large that whatever they were taking still
Hmm.
wasn't as significant of what they were doing. And 10 years later, the only difference is there are more our crowds, there are more ASOPs, and all we see is they're all smaller islands playing in
Yep.
this large pot. And so I really believe that if we fundamentally believe to the core, it's kind of funny, to the core, that we want to make a change, I think we all need to start with ourselves. And
Yep.
we've looked at ourselves in the mirror. We're doing that. We follow David Wheel, the father of the Jobs Act, to the T. He wants to bring democratization. He wants to balance things where the everyday American or individual gets an opportunity to invest. We're all doing that.
Yep.
That's great, but we're not fulfilling the full cycle of that, where we want to make sure that it includes those that have the capital to be engaged in this and to have the trust. So it's kind of a mix for me.
Yeah, when I talk to all these participants, especially on the technology side, I keep getting this vision of a bunch of kids, little kids playing on the beach, and they're all building their private sand castles and saying, this is a wonderful thing. What they're forgetting is that there's a huge ocean waves just washing these things away. So I don't think it's really sustainable. I know, people need to really work together to build something solid. It just doesn't happen because people are saying, hey, my sandcastle is better than anybody else's.
I agree. I agree. I think I again I keep telling people this, that this is the bigger issue, is that there are so many of these islands. So now that
Yep.
they're there, we need to bring them together quickly, because they need, everybody's talking about secondary market trading and private capital markets. We
Yep.
were, and we still are. We still believe it's an important aspect of it. The regulators already provided the regulation, the pathway to it. So
Yep.
why is it not happening? Why isn't it alive today? Why isn't it? And part of it is because it is a team sport, and a team,
Yeah.
not just one team, all the teams working under this rule book around and remove the friction. And the best example I give everybody, it's a primary example I'm doing every day now to kind of get the message across. And
Hmm.
where everybody's familiar with the publicly traded world, some people would say, Oscar, it's inefficient market, it's not as good as it could be. But I go to them, all right, so if I gave you today, I'm on the call with anybody, and I go, look, go to your computer right now and
Hmm.
type in, TSLA, 4-letter character, and you will get all the information on this company from multiple sources, to the Yahoos, to the Google Finance,
Yep.
to magazine, everything. But here is the commonality. All their data points is the same. So it doesn't matter which one you go
Exactly.
to, you will see their stock price, the number of shares outstanding, their board of directors, their officers, their
Yep.
website, news
Yep.
releases. That comfort, that information that investor has at that moment, that retail investor,
Yep.
boom. So they
And I
can go,
don't think people really understand how revolutionary that is. We take it for so
I know,
granted,
I know.
right?
Of
Yeah.
course, because people don't really understand that there's just something underneath it all that makes it all
Mhm.
happen. And
Yep.
that just didn't happen, by surprise. If you want to have a global marketplace of trading, you need to bring all of this, and you start one at a time. And a company did that, and look at it today. It services just under 100,000 companies. Yes, it's inefficient. We don't like it. Some of us, great, but you have to appreciate the fact that if you're a broker dealer, you sit on top of it. If you're IR firm, you sit on top of it. The issuer, the regulators, the auditors, the lawyers, the investors, everybody sits on top of it. Therefore, when they're getting the data, they're getting the trusted information. And that's the most important thing. Trust. Right?
Absolutely.
Trust
Absolutely.
is what it has, right?
And
So
and and
now,
what and what really surprises me is that some of these people are so technology driven. Hey, I'm a technologist, right? But I too realize that you have to look at the needs of the business, of the ecosystem, what it requires, and then match the right technology to that. But I think there are a lot of players out there saying, we have the fantastic technology. Now let's force it on everybody's throat, right? So I find that a little distressing.
yeah, it can be. I mean, there's a time for disruption where you're really trying to, the perfect example of that is companies like Robinhood,
Yep.
Simple.
Yep.
That was where they really needed to kind of shove it. But you got to give them credit, kudos. Not only that they disrupted, but they did it in a compliant manner, in a way that it really showed the incumbents, wait a minute, wow, people really do like this, and you are following everything, you're doing it more efficiently, because it came from people from the inside. And I think so when people analyze and make analogies to what they're doing to another disruptor, I always say this: look deep inside. Look how they got there. Most likely, they have a team that understood. So I think it's the same thing here. I do believe there may be other tools for disruption, but how many more do we need when ultimately, if we don't have that element that the public markets has today, as I just gave you that example, if I give you a private company and I give you their whole name, even if I give it to you with their Inc. or Corp LLC, you will get the laundry list of every single company with that name. And sometimes somebody could have incorporated your company in different countries and you wouldn't even know about it. So obviously with public companies, that doesn't happen. Once it's in this ledger, it's there. So it's there on a permission-based environment. That's it is the public market, but it's permission to those that are entitled to have access to it, which is the investor to view their holdings, the broker dealer who's managing, to the issuer, to the transfer agents, all of that. So that's them. Us, the private capital markets. We have an open canvas. We have a canvas that's wide open. We have all the same players, but what we don't have, or what we didn't have, I should say, what we didn't have is a infrastructure that things could be put on top. And when I say infrastructure, similar to the public world, where the infrastructure is also, some would say, competitive to the others, but they don't. They recognize that in order for everybody, we all need to work together. And I think so I believe 2020 is the year of infrastructure. And I'm not talking about those who are building more online issuance or KYC or any of those more services, because that's already been done. It's laying the pipes to make sure that everybody that needs to be part of the ecosystem, meaning right from the investor, the issuer, the company, which already some have done, but we're not done yet. You need the transfer agent. We're not done yet. You need the lawyers, the attorneys. You need the auditors. You need the regulators.
That's right.
Right? You need the broker dealers, the investment bankers. You need the investment advisors. So it is a fairly large ecosystem of participants. And these participants, each of them, have their own regulatory oversight over their activities, and each of them are required to conduct their business. So regardless if it's private or public, they need to follow certain rules or that they need to adhere to. So unless you include them all in and give them the tool sets that they need to participate, which they want to, the more you exclude them, all you really do is push them away and really become, they're not going to be your cheerleaders anymore.
Exactly, not your advocates.
Exactly. So bring them in, bring them. Our view, our KoreConX, when it comes to this, is very simple. If you are a regulated entity, whether you are a one man or one person, one woman, any type of, you are a regulated entity in which your activities are regulated by a regulator and you have regulatory oversight of your activities. So meaning you're a broker dealer, a lawyer, auditor, transfer agent, corporate registry provider. You can run a node in this infrastructure. And this infrastructure just grows and grows and grows because of it. That's why we were able to deploy it in 23 countries, because we have that framework in our mind, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger. Sure, that's not, people go, well, 23 is not a lot. You're right, but you got to start somewhere. So
Absolutely.
23 is the start, 500 partners and growing. So if we can keep adding them and removing the friction. So where's the friction for most of these companies? It's not, people think that they're hesitant to use technology. I haven't met a broker dealer yet that says, oh my God, that would make me so efficient at helping companies raise capital that I hate your technology. It isn't. Right? It's not that they don't want it. It's that
they don't have the right thing. They don't have the right technology. That's the problem.
They don't have the right technology. Two, sometimes it's just cost, right? The cost commitment to it. So obviously you have to have a different model for it. But it is imperative that everybody recognizes that we need to bring everybody in.
But every time these broker dealers or somebody, they say, hey, we love technology, we want to be more efficient, the only thing they're getting from the marketplace are people who say, oh, we don't need broker dealers, oh, we don't need lawyers, we'll bypass all of them, right? So that's the wrong message.
Well, that ship is sailed, right? That ship is sailed dramatically, given some of the activities that are going on now. And why would you not understand that role they play? A very important role. They play the best risk mitigating role for your company to ensure that the activities you're doing are fully compliant. But so it's unfortunate some people don't understand that, but I think the vast majority do. I think that's the realization. Some broker dealers obviously have to do a better job at, and again, they're trying. There's regardless if they're a one-man shop, and I apologize, I'm not trying to imply that they're all men, but one individual workshop shop to 1,000. The reality is that unless they have the tools, they're not able to sometimes execute. Because look, there is one story that I have in the back of my mind that reminds me every single day why the private capital markets today continue to fail us. And you can't blame them. You can't blame regulators. So let's just be very clear on this. Regulators have done enough. They've given us the rule book. They've given regulations. We applaud them. Obviously, we can always improve on things, but the point is,
of course,
let's go with what we have. So the story I have is very simple. Because we operate in different countries around the world, we meet different broker dealers of different sizes. And in one in particular broker dealer in a city of no more than, I think, just under 200,000 people. So this broker dealer called me one day, and it's a one individual firm, which it will happen. Oscar, I have a great opportunity. So first of all, remember, he made a phone call. So this is the traditional way, calling us, hey, I got a great opportunity, really like your help. Obviously, we're not a broker dealer. There's nothing I can do for this individual, even though for the last few months, we've been trying to get him to adopt our platform to bring his business. And here he is. He finally found a golden client in a sector very hot. Companies are raising capital, and
Hmm.
now he is struggling because he's coming from a small community, and
Right.
that's where the client is, and he
Right.
wants to service them. He's taking years to nourish it, and now he can't access the global marketplace. He could take it to another dealer, and what likely happens is that dealer will take over
He's
the
going to lose.
account.
Yeah, he's going to lose the contact. Yep.
He's gonna and he loses. So this is the reminder that I have, and it's that individual that we I go back to every single time why the
Yep.
private capital markets. So some people are probably thinking, well, Oscar, that's easy. They're in a small town. No, forget about the small town because
Right.
he came from a town of 7 million. So he just
Yep.
decided to go to a smaller town because he wanted to
Yeah.
make it a little bit easier. But the point is that broker dealers, lawyers, they exist in small, extra small, medium, large, for cities and everywhere. So why should we exclude them? So if we truly believe
Absolutely.
bringing everybody together, this is so the argument then now says, well, Oscar, that is, we all agree on that. Okay, great. So we're all in agreement with the premise of bringing everyone together.
Right.
So now it's like any architecting exercise that you go through.
Yep.
You articulate the stakeholders, you understand their obligations as stakeholders, each
That's right.
individual, and you peel it away.
Yeah.
And you do it for each one. And what you do is you understand who is having the regulatory oversight each of them and why, right?
Right.
And
Right.
why. This is
Exactly.
important.
Mhm.
And if there's multiple ones, that why gets even more interesting.
Yep.
And only then can you realistically say that this framework, this
Hmm.
infrastructure is the right one for it. Because if at any of these points you left any of them out, that's one. And
Right.
two, if at any time you put them in an uncompromising situation where they cannot perform their task to meet their regulatory obligation, that's two.
Mhm.
And then,
That's
of
right.
course, the most important, trust. How will they trust that this is being done in a compliant manner based on?
Right.
So those are very important things that we
Hmm.
need to, well, we took into consideration years ago when we got into this. As you know, we
Yep.
tore the market apart. We said, okay, there's this, there's it, which public chains I love on a personal level. What's not to love? I want to be in control.
Exactly.
I want Facebook to have my data now or LinkedIn, but it is the way it is for now. But
Yep.
so from that perspective, I get it. But again, this is a regulated space. And to
Yes.
think that we're going to remove that because a machine or a code written by a human being can replace it, it's just we're not there. When
That's right.
right? And because it's not just trying to get the regulators to change the rules, you need to change those rules and this rule and other rules. So I think we're on the right path to get there.
Yep.
And so for companies that want to have the power of being in a trusted environment, and again, these individuals are coming from the same environment as public and to private. What is it? It's about trust and permission. Hence the reason, the choice that we made
Yep.
with our permission-based environment with the core team, bringing all that together. So, but I think it's going to be a very interesting year for everybody in the ecosystem. We have some very hard questions to answer to the
Hmm.
community at large,
Hmm.
meaning what happened. I mean, so
Yep.
I think now I mean, obviously we've been talking about it here. Hopefully people will appreciate, and for many who understand the ecosystem will say, yeah, of course, that all makes sense. But it's amazing how many people forgot about that during that trailblazing time when, people saying it's going to happen,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at all of the industries that have been very sustainable and very successful, it's always the infrastructure that makes a difference, right? Pipelines, transportation,
Mm.
roadways, right? I mean, these are the things that are very sustainable for a very, very long time. But it's not like there is one controlling entity here, right? It's really the core infrastructure. That's why this thing is so exciting. I don't know how many people actually realize that. So, so you're thinking of the 2020 decade as the decade of,
Yeah, I think we all are. I think you are as
yeah,
well. I think we all are. I think we just got to the point where, we
yep,
look at it. How much more can you go? And I mean, that's why,
yep,
we're not telling people. People ask me, oh, Oscar, you're disrupting. We're not. We're
yep,
empowering. We're empowering. We want to work with everybody. So if anybody of our competitors watching this, email us. We want to talk. We want to figure out a way. And I know there's a way for all of us to work together. Enough
absolutely.
is, because if we all get together, then it's a unified voice from the ecosystem, which then builds trust with the incumbents, meaning the trusted advisors who are right now probably going through their heads like, what's going on, right? Uh,
Hmm.
you know, Look, we're only on the almost at the tail end of January. I've probably done already at least one or two calls per day asking me the same question, which is, so where is the secondary market trading for digital securities or tokenization? Obviously we don't use that term, but for digital securities. And I just obviously I go through this answer with them that it's going to take time. And am I apologetic to what happened last year? Uh, Partly yes, but I think partly at the same time we're seeing that even those who launched secondary markets and all that are
Yep.
recognizing that it's going to be a lot more work than they initially thought. Two, I think people have recognized that investors are not going to buy or invest in your company just because, hey, I got a digital security, that's why you should buy me.
Yeah,
No,
right, right. Hmm.
right? I mean, they're still going to look into the company. So yeah, so 2020, if we want those things, if we truly all want to be in the doing these things, and you're in it for the long game, because this is the long game.
Yep,
I'm 10 years in, I'm a decade in, and I probably got another decade, like most, in building this. And it's,
that's right.
one at a time. Obviously, we want to ramp up faster, but one at a time. I mean, um, it's going to need an infrastructure, and
Yes.
nobody needs to own it, but we all need to agree on it that it's needed. And
Yep.
two, we need to apply it. So we're putting it out there. We released it. We welcome. We're open. If you got your own solution, and can this fit on top of it? Of course, that is the point. That
That's the
is the
whole
point,
point, right?
right?
Yep, yep. It's a
Uh,
classic interoperability.
Of course, of course. The,
Yeah,
the idea is just we got to change this mindset. And
yeah,
so, yeah, it'll be interesting how we look back at the end of 2020, where we are today to where we are then. How much further? I mean, do we have more parties involved in the infrastructure of trust? How big is the infrastructure of trust, right?
right.
At what point is it the tipping point where, wow, this is the infrastructure? Is it 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 partners? Again, regulated party. I mean,
Regulated entities, yes.
exactly. Maybe. I don't know. But the point is that each day you keep growing it and you keep adding. You keep adding the small, and then slowly you keep getting the large, and then all of this starts harmonizing. And then one day, mark my words, one day it will be where there will be a conversation and people in a coffee shop or in a chat room or whatever it is going to be in those days. And they're going to say, listen, I heard about this great company. Here is their symbol, and the individual will go to a Google search or Duck search, wherever they go,
Hmm.
type it in, and they will get the same information that they would get as a public company for a private company, and they will have it from multiple sources,
Yep.
but they will be able to trust it because it's all the same
It's all the
data,
same.
right?
Yes, I love it. Love it. Love it.
That's That's
I mean, every time we have this conversation, I'm like super excited and fired up. It's amazing, what we can do in the space, right? All of us, I mean.
yes, of course, of course. But I think all of us want it. I think everybody wants to have as many different people to kind of be partner, and which is great. Partners are always great, but I think we need to now take a really look at what is the ecosystem. The
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem is not technology partners. The ecosystem is what you see, and if you can't see it, well, then I urge you to look at it closely. For those who
Yep.
are curious, Kiran and I are coming launching a book here very soon. I mean, we're probably not even weeks, probably days away. It's going to be this is going to be a free book for everybody. It's called Digital Securities 101, The Launch. So you want to know who all the parties that are involved in the digital, forget about digital securities, but the whole ecosystem of private capital markets. This is going to give you a view of that, and also help you understand how it all works, so that you're not misguided, and regardless of which path you take, but you understand that this is part of a bigger picture, and once we get everybody involved, we are all going to flourish, and we are going to be able to see the impact, and that's really the goal. So it's exciting. We hope everybody enjoys it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful.
Perfect. Well, listen, it was great talking to you. I'm looking forward for us
Likewise.
to talk again on another hot topic and items.
Let's do it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to invite other members of our team, because I figured that every conversation I have, people start asking questions. One thing I try to tell, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm not a guru. Obviously, Kiran, you have your PhD, which is great attribute, and obviously you're one expert in an area that brings great credibility. But for me, it's purely, I'm not going to say observation because we're hands-on, but I'm hoping that as I speak to anybody, whether it's an entrepreneur or fellow participant in this ecosystem, whether you are already building tech or you're just on the other spectrum of it,
right.
This is a conversation piece. And,
absolutely.
And I think it'll be great as I do more of these on a weekly basis. It will be interesting to see how they come out.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, why not? Till next time.
Till next time. Awesome.
Take care.